Are you ready for an open discussion with the best of the best and the best of what's next? Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show. Join in on a great conversation today with some of the world's great influencers as they showcase great advice and techniques that made them the game changers they are today. Now, here's Tony DUrso.
Welcome, I'm your host, Tony DUrso, and it's great to have you with us again. I'm so glad that you're getting a lot of our interviews with people who are at the top of their category that we call elite entrepreneurs. After all, it's all about helping you turn your vision into reality. And I know I ask you to share with your friends, and now today's show is going to be an up level to that, because today we're going to discuss success through networking with Frank Agin. Now, when I first heard of networking a very long time ago, I thought people were talking about multi-level marketing because back then it was called networking through the circles I was in. But today, I don't think it has that association anymore. Networking today, to me, means to be able to reach lots of prospects in your area or business, or reaching people for something you need through a referral. And referrals, they have a lot more power and weight than maybe you think. When I'm looking up a company online or surfing or trying to find someone, I really like it when I have a referral. And I usually ask if they're even in a slightly remote area to it or somewhat, close to it. I ask for a referral. And when I get a referral for something, it's always solid. Now, do you know why? Well, one factor is that the trust between your friend and the referral person is now passed on over to you. And it works both ways, whether someone's referred you or you referring someone. And it's sort of like, I guess, in a way, a little bit of due diligence, which helps you make better decisions. There's more to it. That was just one piece of it. Now, meet Frank Agin. He's the founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, or you could say AmSpirit, where he helps empower entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals around the country to be more successful through networking. And he's given me some good referrals, by the way. Frank is a sought after speaker on professional networking and business relationship development, and he's the author of multiple books on this topic, nearly a dozen or so. He's written a lot of books. You got to check it out. And also, Frank hosts a weekly podcast called Networking RX, and I've had the pleasure to be on that recently. Enough about that. Let's dive into this and find out more. Hi, Frank. Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show. So great to see you again.
Tony, thank you very, very much for having me. I know you have a lot of great guests, and I am very thankful for being a part of that that Hall of Fame of yours.
Frank, you humble me, and you are a humble spirit, and I love working with you. And we're really looking forward to learning more about success through networking, helping grow our business to the next level, or even if it's a startup, we just want to grow, and networking is a very big factor on that. And I've got a lot of questions. We're going to banter on this, but before we get into that, Frank, let's fill in your backstory a little bit. Can you tell us, how did it all start for you?
Yeah, and it really kind of ties into networking, if you will. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I came here to go to law school. I have a law degree. I have an MBA from the Ohio State University, and I started my career in public accounting as a tax consultant. Tony, it was a great job. It was great pay. I had great coworkers, great clients, great office, great everything, prestige. Except I didn't want to do taxes for the rest of my life, and I hope most people can appreciate that. Um, and so, after about 6.5 years, which will tell you I'm slow but not stupid, I decided to leave, and I decided to go into the private practice of law. I wanted to start a small business practice. Well, a funny thing happened when I went into the practice of law, and the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. Because when you work in a big firm, you just show up and the work is generally there. And so I was kind of that bad actor running around at networking events, handing my card off, just hoping somebody would hire me. Really had no idea what I was doing. One day I had lunch with a friend who was an attorney, and she had started her own firm. And I asked her, I said, what do I need to do to be successful? And she said, you need to get into a club or a leads group. Well, I really didn't have any idea what she was talking about, but she introduced me to an organization that was similar to BNI. Many people are familiar with BNI, but it wasn't BNI. It was based out of Pittsburgh. At any rate, when I showed up, it immediately made sense that I could lift up my whole world by helping other people and just trusting that it would come back to me. And so I really doubled down on that and became very successful with my law practice through that organization. Well, in the early 2000s, I had an opportunity. I had an opportunity to buy the organization from the woman who was running it out of Pittsburgh. So I did. I bought it and I rebranded it as AmSpirit, which is short for American Spirit, and stopped the practice of law. And it really changed the trajectory of my life. I went from this very left brain attorney, lots of numbers sorts of person to this right brain. Um, I'm going to build relationships and teach people how to build relationships and become a student of networking and relationships and why things work and why things don't work in the world of networking or professional relationships.
Frank, here you are. You're an attorney. You have a degree in economics and management, also, by the way, and you get into networking to help you start learning it and finding out all about it to help bring business. But then you kind of switch and you're going from what I consider a cushy job in a way, or a cushy position. You take the entrepreneur plunge, you're out
Yeah.
there, but now you get into networking and you're helping people in other businesses through this. I just want to drill down because that vision just set the stage for your whole successful life.
Yeah. One of the first questions everybody always, I guess, ponders is what is networking? And, it's really not a product of the 80s or the 90s or network marketing or anything like that. Networking is two or more people working towards their mutual success. That's the broad definition of networking, the definition I use. And it certainly has applications in business, but it also has applications in our personal lives. And one of my, a close friend, he always will share, Frank, networking is as old as dirt, meaning it's been around a long, long time. George Washington met Betsy Ross, who sewed the first American flag, at church. That's networking. They got to know each other. So there are certainly a lot of stories. One of the ones that I find really really sets the stage for what networking is all about is there's a famous anthropologist out there. Her name is Margaret Mead, and she was teaching a class, and one of the students said, "What was the first sign of human civilization?" And she thought about it, and people were like, "Okay, is it weapons? Is it fire? Is it, you know, clay pots, whatever?" And she responded that the first sign of human civilization was a healed femur. Now, the femur is the bone that connects the knee to the hip. And without medical care, it takes about 6 weeks of immobility for it to heal. So she went on to say that in the animal kingdom, when an animal breaks its femur, and most mammals have femurs, most animals have femurs that ones that walk upright. Um, when they break their femur, it's a death sentence because they can't move, they can't forage, they're obviously going to get eaten by prey. But when they came across human remains where the femur had healed, they knew that somebody stayed behind to care for that person. So imagine a group of three people and someone breaks their femur. They have a choice. We can leave this person behind, and rather than being three strong, we're just going to be two of us, or we can stay behind and give up 6 weeks of our lives and help this person get back to health, and then we're three strong again. Um, and that was reciprocated when each of them had problems, and that made us as a species stronger. So that's really kind of the origin, not the broken femur, but at some point, humans discovered that if they help each other, their odds of survival were much greater. And we fast forward today and we find that working together, you and I working together, me sending you people that you help, or you introducing me to people, that increases not our odds of surviving. We're going to be fine, right? We can dial up a pizza if we need it. But our level of prosperity rises if we're willing to help each other.
Frank, I'm always curious what with my elite entrepreneurs that I interview, the purpose, the reason behind what they do. We've talked about a little bit here. You mentioned or you touched upon it, but very curious. Why do you do it? Why do you see that networking is it's your life and you're really good at it? Why? What's behind that?
You know, I enjoy helping people. Certainly I make a living. I do fine. I've got 3 grown kids. They're through college. Debts are paid. I'm not rich. Well, my wife says I'm rich in love and happiness, and I am. But it's fun helping people. It's fun seeing somebody who's decided I'm going to leave corporate America. And that is a scary thing to leave corporate America. It's a scary thing to do a lot of things out there. It's difficult. And there are a lot of people out there who lose their jobs. Corporate positions are gone. To be able to help them and to know that their holidays are a little better, how they feel about themselves is a little better, and it does come back to me. It's amazing, whenever I help somebody, something comes back to me. I can't always see how it's all connected, and it's not always perfect, right? You don't do something for somebody and then something happens for you tomorrow, but you kind of put karma out in the world and it kind of lifts things up. And so that's really why I enjoy it. I don't have any aspirations of retiring. I mean, networking and building positive relationships is really a lifelong pursuit.
We're talking with Frank Agin about success through networking, and you can find him at frankagin.com, and I'll spell that. We know that one, Frank. Agin is Agin. So that's frankagin.com. Go check it out and see all the books and stuff that he does. It's very cool. Frank, let's get a little bit more into your vision path here and let's do this deep dive into networking. You've defined networking, but really, let me take the flip side. Why should we network? There's social media, there's advertising, there's all these other ways to get prospects, ways to sell our products and services. Why do you see that networking is perhaps bigger than it should be in that we should do it more often than we don't?
Yeah, you touched on it in your early part. You talked about trust and you talked about, you know, basically borrowing somebody's trust. When I refer you to somebody, and I've got somebody I want to refer you to, I will. I won't. That's my big spoiler. It's coming, Tony. But I'm but when I introduce you to that person, they're going to be like, okay, Frank's making this introduction. I trust Frank. Frank, Frank trusts Tony. Okay. But here's the reality: is that we do nothing alone. Nothing. We got to the moon. It was thousands of engineers. It was 3 people flying a capsule. And before them, there were dozens of other astronauts who kind of led the way. John Glenn making the first trip into space and so on and so forth. And so we've conquered this whole planet working together. Yes, there's social media. Yes, there's advertising. But at the end of the day, the most important thing we do as humans, and this is true since the beginning of time, the most important thing we've done is made a decision to trust other people. And so through networking, we're building this trust. And so if I can build trust with you, genuine trust, I'm in a better spot. Now I can still use social media. People come to me and they might want to say, "Hey, do you have is somebody out there willing to recommend you?" Yeah, I'm going to put you up. I'm going to connect you to Tony. Um, but people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses, and they want to know that they can know people, they can like people, and they can trust people. And there's only 2 ways to get trust. You have to earn it, or you have to borrow it. You can't buy it. It's one of those 2 things. You have to earn it, or you can borrow it. Earning it can be a long path depending upon what you do. If you're a financial advisor and you're hoping to help somebody with their 7-figure nest egg, to earn that trust might take years. To get an introduction from an accountant or an attorney, that's a phone call or an email. So the notion of borrowing somebody's trust that's networking, building relationships, is really a much quicker path to success.
It's true. It's true. And way back before I started doing the real networking, I would talk about how there's the American way to sell and then there's the European way to sell. And the European way is you get to know the person first. It's hi, how are you? Maybe have a meal, maybe hang out, maybe whatever. Then you talk about business. But back then, and I'm talking way back when, and maybe this is a history lesson for some in the United States, it wasn't that way. It was just going after the money, going after the business, and the personal touch wasn't there. And it was almost kind of in a way forbidden a little bit or taboo. It was you don't get personal with your clients. You're just going after the money. Here's what we can offer. Here's the price. Boom, and here's why you should buy it. Hard sell. And that used to be the way, and that was kind of the way I was brought up in sales, believe it or not. And I eventually would sneak in my European style that, w- getting to know the person first and being sure that I can help him and showing him why I
Right.
can help him. But now that's called networking. And it seems to have kind of pervaded more. But I think that networking is really an old style approach of how to really get some business going.
Yeah. Well, obviously in the last 150 years with the Industrial Revolution, things have changed quite a bit. And up until then, things were much the same for thousands of years. The old school networking, as you put it, I believe, and I don't know for a fact, but I believe it was successful because people didn't have options. They didn't have the ability to find out if one person's car was better than another or aluminum siding or whatever. They just kind of had to trust that salesperson. The information wasn't out there. And while the internet has allowed us to reach more people faster, and you would think, okay, that's going to be the end of networking, what it's done is it gives people more options. So if you're somebody looking for a podcast coach, you have options to look at people. And if somebody's going to be putting the hard sell on you, but you can easily kind of put them off and you can go out there and you can find somebody else. So it really kind of puts the power back in the consumer's hand and they don't have to feel like, okay, I've got to, he's the only person I can buy a car from, you know?
I know that too well. When I used to go buy a car in the past, it was like, this is the car I need. I need this car. And the salesman is just really unpleasant. But what
Yeah.
choice do I have? And this is how it used to be. Very true. Very good points. Frank, let's kind of go into some successful networking tips, pieces of advice, hacks.
Yeah.
What makes good networking? And let's kind of go over some of them.
Yeah. It all stems back, Tony, to kind of my original story about the broken femur. Because what led from that is we started to live in groups or tribes. And the theory is that those tribes were about 150. And there's research out there to support that. I'm one of these people. I don't just take conjecture. I like to look at the research. And what they've done studies that based on the size of the human brain, 150 people is an optimal number for us to communicate with. What they've done is they've looked at primates of all different shapes and sizes and the groups that they're in. And if it's in a group of 12 versus another type of primate, maybe has a group of 24, the group of 24 has a larger brain. And so they've determined that we lived in these tribes of about 150. Well, when you were in those tribes, you needed to contribute. There was no social safety net. There was, you had to do your part. You had to go on the hunt. You had to stay back and do whatever needed to be done, build tents, build forts, cook, whatever. You had to contribute. And if you didn't contribute, you were done. You were ostracized. They would ask you to leave, and that would be a death sentence. So we're really hardwired to kind of look around and look at people and make a determination about, are they a net giver or are they a net taker from society? And so a lot of those things really kind of carry forward to today. I mean, there's been no big break in time where all this our ancient history. I mean, we're carrying forward that same DNA from that broken femur. So I start to look at those things and I start to think about those things and see the research that's out there. One of the number one things you can do to become successful in your network is to find ways to help other people. And we keep harping on this, but that's what people are looking for. When you do something for somebody, they are hardwired to not return it immediately, but they have a level of affinity towards you. The people who see you helping somebody else, they're like, yeah, that Tony, he did that. He's got that charity, he helps all those people. It's an amazing thing. None of it helps me, but I gotta believe that he's a good person because he does that. And so the first thing I always tell people is find ways to add value to other people. It doesn't have to be pulling money out of your pocket. When I say giving, it can be as simple as just giving somebody encouragement. I know you had a rough day. I've had rough days too. Just stick with it. You'll be fine. Those things carry a lot of weight. The opportunity to be on your podcast is a wonderful gift. You being on mine, hopefully, is a wonderful gift. So those are certainly things we can do. We can make introductions because, when I have the opportunity to introduce you to somebody else, as opposed to being in the middle and always having to be the go-between, that serves as a benefit to you because I open up your world to their entire world by making that introduction. So, those are some things that we can certainly do to add value to other people. And it really goes on. I always say, it's about contacts, helping people find contacts. It's about helping people find information. Think about putting your podcast together and somebody giving you a little bit of information about lighting or sound, that saved you hours of either looking silly or trying to figure it out on your own. And the other thing is opportunities. Hey, here's an opportunity for you to do whatever. So never stop giving. The other thing I talk about is don't size people up. We're guilty from time to time of sizing people up and saying, they're not really important to me. I can't see what's going to come from that. I have run into a lot of great people out there, Tony, that you would think would be wonderful connectors, wonderful help, and I'm disappointed. And then I've come across people that I'm like, I wonder why I'm even talking to this person. So I got introduced to a guy probably a couple months ago. His name's Nick Smith. He's in Cincinnati. I'll throw his name out there. Hopefully I'll get him to listen. But he's an IT guy. I'm like, okay, why am I talking to an IT guy? I don't get it. But he has been just a treasure trove of introduction. Figured out what I'm about, figured out how he can help me. And anytime he comes across somebody that could help me, he makes that introduction. Again, back to giving. But people do look at other people like, I don't really see what that's going to do for me. The reality is, Tony, is we don't know who people know. We have no idea who people know. And, not everybody's going to be your next best client or your star employee, but everybody's connected to somebody who could be. And we need to keep that in mind. So go ahead.
Frank, I could be wrong, but I've been in corporate America probably, I would say 32 years. And if I count my newspaper route as a kid, I would say I was an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for like 29 years now, give you an idea. And back then, as we mentioned, it was just take, sell. This is what you want, buy it. That's it, whatever. Then it's changed a little bit over time. And I'm talking way back when to, I'll give you something, but what am I going to get? What are you going to do for me? And I get that sometimes, even today, like where I talk about, as someone, and it's a small thing. I mean, it's not necessarily, maybe there's no such thing as a small thing and everything has to have a price tag on it. But when I ask some people sometimes, to do something simple, I'm going to be very generic and not mention it. I'll get, well, what are you going to do for me? And we went through this period, I believe, in the US of, well, what are you going to do for me? And usually there's money that interchanges, but sometimes a referral, for example, isn't something that you would pay for. You wouldn't pay that to an associate necessarily, though there's probably businesses that that do that very successfully. But now it's changed. It's changed. I'm just going over the change. Now it's more and more just give, just give, just give and help. Now, I'm not saying give your books away free or give your services away free. I'm not talking about that. But there are things that you can do that just, you're giving and you're not putting a dollar value on that. When I'll help my clients sometimes. They don't ask for it. I'll give them some advice on podcasting. I'll say, hey, I noticed this. Hey, I noticed that. I didn't ask them for money. I just am giving them some information. I'm just giving. But and you can do it without expecting something in an ulterior motive. And as you're saying, it comes back when you give out. It's like a wave. It's like water. It goes out. It ebbs and flows. It comes back to you, and that's the one thing that I think successful business people really understand is when they reach out with something that it comes back to them.
Yeah, no, I mean you're so right that one of my many analogies, excuse me, I don't like coconut, Tony. I just don't like it. For whatever reason, I don't like coconut. Something as a kid. But if I come across an almond joy bar, which is coconut with some chocolate, mainly coconut,
Frank,
I
come
don't
on, it's almond joy. It's like, come on.
what but see, here's the thing. If you like them, right? If but I may not want it, but I'm gonna pick it up, right? Or I'm gonna take it if somebody's gonna offer it. I'm not gonna say, oh, I don't want that, but I'm gonna take it because I know that you might want that. And that's really kind of how networking is working and how you're working with your podcast. You might be sharing some information. When you share information, you're not depleted at all, right? It's two plus two equals four. We can tell the whole world two plus two equals four, and we're not any worse off. It's not like lending somebody your car, pulling $5 out of your pocket, where you're depleted somehow or another. And so that's the beauty of networking is we can find the things that other people value, find out about the things that other people value. And when we come across them, grab them and hand them off. Oh, you're looking to meet this kind of person? I just met him. They can be a great contact for you. Might not be a client, but he'd be a good contact for you. And then it's just, and that's the essence of it. And I hear what you're saying about I don't keep score. I don't believe in keeping score. When somebody suggests it, I'm like, listen, I don't keep score. If you want to try and do something for me, here's what I could use as help, but don't feel any pressure. It'll happen if it's going to happen.
Frank, that brings up a very good case in point I'd like to share. My wife and I, we moved to a brand new area that we just love the environment, the climate. We just love it, everything. And we picked up some goodies. We picked up some very unique types of goodies, uh, various different types of sweets, because we felt that when we would go to this new place, we would, introduce ourselves to the neighbors. So we did. We just met the neighbors and hi, who are you? Nobody knows who does what. We're not talking jobs. We're talking people,
Right.
friends, and we just shared. Here, have these, desserts or sweets or whatever, and it's just a friendly thing. So we got to know our neighbors. Okay, that was great. Well, turns out because of that nice gesture, which had literally nothing attached, we're just friendly people. I think it's the Italian part in us. And turns out one of the neighbors is very well connected in a certain area where we needed to do some business with. And it was like she said, anybody she goes, I know everybody in this area. You need something, you let me know. And it was such a surprise. We would have never have expected it. I'm not giving details. I'm being very generic
Sure.
for various reasons, but it was just like this world opened up in the world of exactly what we needed, as if, you know, and we're very thankful to God for just opening up this door. And it was that just giving just to say hi, hey, I'm a new neighbor, be friends. That's that's kind of an the spirit that we're talking about here,
Yeah.
and some of the repercussions you have necessarily no idea of what could happen. And then all of a sudden, as we were saying, it ebbs out and comes back, and then something great opens up for you.
No, I mean, I think that's a great story. And that just taps into human nature. It taps into that moment where people stayed behind with somebody who had a broken femur. It taps into those moments where people lived in a tribe and they looked over and they saw, prehistoric Tony and his wife just helping because that was what they needed to do to make the community better. So we're hardwired to look for those things, and so it's not calculating. What you did wasn't calculating; it was just being human. It would be calculating if you wanted something in return, or if you knew something about these people and were angling for something. You were genuine, and people are smart. They know if it's calculating, and all these people knew it was just, oh, you're new to the neighborhood. This is really nice.
Yeah, how could you know anything about your neighbors, really?
Yeah.
Frank, let's go into some do's, don'ts. We want to learn. We're entrepreneurs. We've got some products. We do custom watches on the side. We frame pictures on the side nights and weekends. We're building a website. We're doing this, we're doing that. And we want to take our business to the next level and perhaps our new product. What are some really good do's and don'ts in no particular order? Let's don't forget to mention things that we should avoid.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to avoid is don't sell. Um, and and that's a hard thing for people who are new in business. They, they're trying to make quota. It's a hard thing. And networking is not for the person who needs to make quota by the end of next week. Networking it's a long-term thing. It's a lifestyle. But as far as dues, and we've talked about some, getting out and having conversations with people. And when you have conversations with people, and this is one of the big hangups I hear when I get out and work with groups, you know, I struggle going to events. I don't like going to events. I don't like small talk. And the reason they don't like small talk is because they're trying to talk. They're trying to be the ones who have things to say. And the most successful small talk is when you get the other person talking about themselves. And you're not directing them, but you're just finding information out about them. A friend of mine, he's very adept at this. He was at a networking event. This was years ago. It was during the early days of the deployment to the Gulf War, the second Gulf War, and he was at a networking event, and he came across a gentleman whose son had just been deployed to the Middle East, and he could just tell that guy wanted to talk about his son. And he let him, and he just kept pushing it along and kept pushing it along. And, tell me about your son playing baseball. How was it coaching your son? Just let him reminisce about his son. And that was the extent of the conversation at this networking event. Most people would say you were a fool. You didn't get anything out of it. All you got was his business card, you know. Well, what ended up happening that next week is that person called him and said, I really appreciate you taking the time and listening to me, what I had to say. It was a hard time. We never really had a chance to talk about what you did in business. I would like to take you to lunch and learn about all the stuff that you do. Perfect setup, right? Yeah. So when you have conversations, listen to what other people have to say. Find ways to introduce people. And that's a powerful thing. You never run out of things. You never run out of things that you can give to other people if you have a network, because you can constantly be introducing people. I met somebody today. There are people that I need to introduce them to. And that just, he was asking me, what can I do for you? Well, you really kind of have. You've given me somebody that I could share with other people and help me continue to be sort of a connector of people, if you will. You know, the don'ts, again, one of the most important things we do as humans is determine whether we trust someone. And so you need to do the things that people can uh, that build your trust. Simple things: be on time, do what you say you're going to do. Maybe leave your politics at the door, right? I mean, if you love to talk politics, then talk to people who love to talk politics. But if you don't know someone's politics or someone's religion, you're probably best to leave it at the door, or if you can't, at least be open-minded as to what other people have to say. Some people can't do that, and they certainly run into problems with respect to that. Get involved. Get involved in the community is always a great way of getting yourself known. Other things that, one thing I will suggest is stop and look at your network. When people think of networking, they think about getting out there and meeting new people, and they forget the fact that they have a life. You've spent 29 years in entrepreneurship. How many years did you say you worked in corporate America? It was another 20 some years, or
32.
32. You know a lot of people, right? And all those people know you, they like you, they trust you.
I
So
hope so.
yeah. Yeah. But the point is that you should tap back into them and make sure that those relationships are going, because you already have a relationship with them. And people feel like I need to meet new people to be successful. Well, that there's some truth to that, because we have people that leave our lives and unfortunately they pass away or move away or whatever it is. But we have a pretty big network, all of us. High school friends, college friends, former neighbors, former work colleagues. Be sure to tap into those things. And I guess the last do I will, it's a do and a don't. Be patient. Networking works. It doesn't always work on the timeline you want it to work on, right? You go to a networking event looking to get some business and nothing happens, but something comes from it 3 years later. It worked. Just didn't work how you wanted it to work. Networking may not work where you want it to work. We go to networking events thinking something will happen, and we're standing in line at the grocery store and we meet somebody. It worked. Just didn't work where you wanted it to work. And it doesn't always work the way we want it to work. You go to that networking event, again, trying to get some business, and you find out about that great vacation opportunity that you wouldn't otherwise know about. It worked. Just didn't work exactly how you want it to work.
Frank, there's a couple questions that came up in what you were saying there, and that is, should we belong to networking groups, how many we should belong to? And also, I've been getting invited, and I do get a lot of invites to join groups. And I was just in a group that had very successful, had well over 100 people, and they gave everybody like 45 seconds to talk. It was just kind of odd to me. I'm not used to that. You know, um, it's almost becoming like an assembly line, and sometimes, and it could be different companies that on how they do it. So, and there's social media. Is that networking? There's so many different social media. There's like 2,368 new social media platforms coming out.
Yeah.
So how do we kind of frame this? Find one group or two, or keep joining? What's your take on all that?
Well, I run a networking organization, so I think everybody will think I'm going to say join a networking organization. And I think the answer to that question is it depends. It depends who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. Um, our organization is good for certain people. It's not good for other people. And I will freely tell people it's not for everybody. But again, we have to remember that networking is about building relationships. So you need to be in an environment where you can build relationships. Me personally, I tend not to get involved in things unless I have the ability to um, be somewhat of a leader or be involved in some form or fashion. If I have to just join something and sit off to the side, I'm really not interested, because I can't create relationships. If there's a group out there and there's 100 people, me personally, I wouldn't be interested, because I don't feel like I could create relationships. Maybe there's things that happen before and after the meeting, but to sit and listen to 99 other people yammer on for 45 seconds, I mean, it would be like white noise at some point. But for some people, that might be exactly what they want, So I think it all depends. It's not one size fits all. I don't know about joining lots and lots of different groups. People always ask me, can I be in 2 of your AmSpirit groups? And my answer to them always is, well, you have to pay 2 fees. So You would think I would say yes, but my answer is no. I don't want you in 2 groups. And they would say, "Why?" "I want to get more business." I'm like, "I get that." I said, "Are you married?" "Yeah." "How many wives do you have?" "I have 1." Well, same sort of thing. You can only be beholden to so many people, right? So when people know that you've got conflicting loyalties, all of a sudden they're not trusting you as much. So you need to be sometimes more, sometimes less is more, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking that if I was in 1, maybe 2 really good groups
Yep.
and just worked it, learned because they're people. They are
Yep.
people. They have a life, they have a story, they have things, they have connections. It takes time, and I'm not talking about ulterior motives here, but it takes time to know everyone and see how you can help them and for them to see how they can help you. And I think if somebody goes to multiple groups, you can test them to see what they're like, but I think, find 1 or 2 I would make sense to me. Plus, for me, speaking personally, I'm too busy to join a whole lot of groups. I want
Yeah.
1 or 2 really good groups and work to serve them. And I think that would be more for, you know, would be more conducive to my business and my business lifestyle.
I think that's the right answer, but people sometimes people make the wrong choices because they are making short run decisions. I'm going to be in lots of groups thinking there's going to be more, and sometimes 1 plus 1 equals something far less than 2 for that reason. And you're better off to just have 1 group and really know get to know the people.
There you go. And if you're looking for a group and you're not in any networking group, check out what Frank has and see if that's a fit for you. Just want to make sure because not every entrepreneur is in a group networking, and you really owe it to yourself at some point to get into that and work that as part of your business and your lifestyle, because it just helps. If you do it right, it really helps your business and helps you take things to the next level. Frank, we have a few more minutes, and one thing I always like to ask when possible is, any particular resources that you think would be very good for our audience entrepreneurs that maybe you'd like to mention, of any particular resources or even any particular habits that you think are really conducive to being successful.
Yeah, I mean, boy, we should have started the show with that. I could probably go on and on and on. I think consistency is important. Get yourself a routine. I'm partial to being up early and getting after the day, and I know that's not everybody's thing, and that's fine. But whenever you decide to get up, be consistent with respect to the things you do. Like I said before, certainly be reliable. Um, some of the things that I do is I keep track of who I should be following up with. Get yourself a contact manager, a CRM of some sort. And there's lots of them out there. Some are very inexpensive, some are free. In fact, I use Outlook and it serves me very, very well. And it's just part of my Microsoft package. But use a contact manager and keep notes on people. I think that has served me well. I can do a search. Somebody's looking for a job. I can pull up all my employment people just like that. So that's certainly something I would recommend doing. Um, and back to the networking thing. Yeah, we should get out and network. I encourage that. But if you're not feeling it, you're having a bad day, stay home. Do everybody a favor. Do yourself a favor. And I see people coming to events and they're like, "Oh, I'm having a bad day, but I've got to be here." That's just counterproductive in my estimation.
I don't know how that could be helpful.
No, well, it's not.
Frank, at the before I sign off, at the very beginning of this interview, you mentioned something. Is that something you wanted to discuss on air? You said you had something that you wanted to go over with me.
I'm trying to think what it was.
You said it was you weren't going to do a spoiler alert.
Oh,
You were going to
yeah.
mention it later.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll email them and email you later. There's somebody I had a conversation with today, and I think that they would be a good person for you. but I'll wrap it all nice and neat in an email and connect the two of you. So
I love it. And that's just how easy it goes for our audience. This is not scripted. I didn't know what Frank was talking about or what he had to share. And I've gotten some very good referrals from him, and I need to give him some referrals back.
well, but you don't. I don't keep score.
You're
So
right. I don't need to, but whenever I find out something that you want, I'm going to go, oh, I can help with that.
that's good. Thank you.
Once again, we talked about success through networking with Frank Agin, and you can find him at frankagin.com. Frank, thank you so much for talking about success through networking. I learned a few points, it solidified a few points, and I really hope that we've piqued the interest and got some of our entrepreneurs to take a better look at this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me while I featured an elite entrepreneur who took his vision to reality. This was a great chat about success through networking with Frank Agin. We talked about so many things and we had a nice banter back and forth on why we should network. We talked about how it was in the past and how it evolved to what it is today. Networking should be done in the spirit of helping people, finding out what they're about and seeing if you can help or connect them. And you do this with no ulterior motive. What comes, comes. And you'll be surprised at the referrals and business you get from your new friends who like you and know what you're all about. And we discuss some do's and don'ts. So you tell me, what did you get out of this? And if you have a good networking story, please tell us on one of our video platforms. We're on Rumble and now on BitChute. Or you can just tweet me at Tony, DUrso. Or reach out any way you like. That was a fun chat, and I want to thank you again for spending some time with us. Let's help you move on your journey to success. Thanks, and remember, just take action. Success awaits those who persevere and remain steadfast despite the odds. Sow good seeds, do good deeds, and join me on the next episode of The Tony DUrso Show.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of the Tony DUrso Show with his key influencers. Be sure to tune in again next Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Influencers channel.